Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Janish and I am the Product Marketing Manager at AppViewX. To give you a little introduction about our company, AppViewX is revolutionizing the way NetOps and SecOps teams deliver services to enterprise IT. Our platform is a modular low-code software application that enables the automation and orchestration of network infrastructure using an intuitive context-aware visual workflow. Our topic for today is SSL TLS Certificate Management 101, What to Manage. This topic will be presented by Murali Palanisamy, our CSO. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the questions box in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up at the end of the presentation during our Q&A. Now, without further ado, I'll turn the mic over to Murali. Hello, Murali.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Excited to talk about the certificate management and what we need to manage. Let's go into it. It's a short webinar, 30 minutes. So I would want to browse through. We have quite a bit of content there. Okay, to start off with, right, we see a huge uptick in encryption. And what is driving the encryption? If you really look at it, right, the cloud migration adds a new curveball to this whole process, where just about half of the enterprises who have been queried, they have some amount of data in the cloud. Now, any data that they put in the cloud, they need to be securing it because it being a common shared platform. And that adds a new challenge of encrypting and encryption keys, symmetric keys, right? And this is going to grow. I mean, the data that's going to move to the cloud, or the data that's hybrid deployment models are going to grow, right? And if you look at the encryption strategy, less than half suggests that they have a consistent enterprise-wide strategy. And this is the norm, or this is what we have seen, because it takes time to adapt to a consistent encryption standard, consistent key management standard. If you look at the different types of keys, or the different keys that are in an environment, right? So if you look at that, the biggest challenge is when the cloud providers offer bring your own key. So when you generate a key and that key stays on HSM or it's secured in one location, it makes it easier. But when there is an option to bring your own key, the whole process becomes manual, and you need to generate the key. You need to port it over to the cloud system, and that becomes a big challenge. And then there are SSH keys which are scattered across, and with cloud services and cloud offerings, SSH key come back to the center stage now. And then there are code signing certificates, code signing keys, symmetric keys, which are needed if you're deploying, codes in a distributed way, containerizing it, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And there are the standard SSL, TLS, X509 keys, which seems to be increasing at a alarming rate right now. 84% of the websites are using HTTPS, and this is constantly growing. As more and more websites become secure, there are more and more keys and certs to be managed. And now there are a whole bunch of new approaches there. There are ECC algorithms. There is SAN certificates. There is SNI based server identification, where multiple certs or multiple servers are assigned to a same cert and same IP address. So the complexity is increasing. And then there are encryption certificates for desktop encryption, payment related. So in essence, the complexity increasing, right? And if you look at what are all the certificates that we need to manage, there is, if you were looking at the list, there is the top on the list is the X509, because that's pretty much on every server, every endpoint, every user, every device has some form of certificate, right? X509, which is the TLS client certificate or server certificate. And there is device encryption keys, whether it is a laptop where there is a BitLocker key to encrypt the laptop, and you need to have a recovery key, and there are symmetric keys for encrypting the database, symmetric key for encrypting the data, and all that. And then there are the SSH keys, there are code signing keys, a mobile certificate, mobile device certificates with the explosion of the number of mobile users and mobile apps, and service delivery through the mobile, like content delivery through the mobile. There are service content providers who use certificates on the device, and they use certificates to control the content. And now there is a huge movement with IoT, with connected cars and connected devices and all that, and everything requires encryption, and that is a huge list of keys to manage. And then there are data encryption keys, as we spoke about earlier. And the bigger challenge is how do you manage these, right? How do you identify the keys? There is an infrastructure key, right? And when you take infrastructure key, there could be certificates deployed on different devices, and no one person knows what are all the certificates there. And it also needs to be managed based on the usage. For example, the same certificate, client certificate, could be deployed on your laptop, it could be deployed on a smart card, it could be deployed on your mobile. So there are different use cases and different mediums, but the usage is where you need to look at, and how we need to manage it based on the usage, right? So that's another challenge. And if you look at the biggest challenge is the manual management of all these. There is no central command and control. If there is no central command and control, and majority of the organizations don't have a central command and control for managing and enforcing the policies. There are a whole bunch of policies defined how to secure the key. Now, if you think about it, 10, 15 years before, right, how the passwords were managed. There are policies stating that you need to change your password. You should not write your password on paper or on your, post-it notes on the screen. Those were policies, but there was no way to enforce them. It is up to the user to follow it. I still remember, there were cases where, the financials used to have the password policy where for secure servers, there would be two people who own their pieces of password. Once the activity is done, they would go and type their piece of it, write it in paper, that piece, and then the other person will type the other piece of the password, write it in paper. Both those papers get into an envelope, and then they go into a locker, two different lockers. So there was a dual control where no one person had access to the password, but then it was still in paper in a locker, a physical locker. It was interesting if you look back right now, with the privilege access management tools, all that is automatically generated. There is an auto random password generated, and it automatically goes and changes the password. There is literally no human intervention in there. But fast forward now, right? With that password, we had such a challenge. Now we're the whole complexity has changed to keys, right? Securing the keys and digital certificates and encryption keys and all that. So a similar approach is needed for that. If we cannot manually manage those digital assets, just like how we manually manage those passwords. And the other challenge that we see is because there is no central inventory, because there is no one place where everything is defined, validating or checking the compliance, if it complies to a set of policies, is ineffective in essence. Again, that all points to the manual implementation. And then it is pretty common that we have seen in every enterprise where for device certificates, right, device access or device management certificates, they would basically create a long valid certificate with a self-signed certificate, 10 years validity, just to remove the hassle of manual management. So there are different shortcuts taken pretty much because it's a manual process, and each one of them have their own risks, in that whole approach. Now, what is the solution? How can we do to address these, right? So the first approach is to make sure we discover all the certificates and have one place where everything is located. So whether this key is used in an application or not. So even if there is a certificate or key is sitting on the hard disk, we need to know because it's just like, there are scanning systems which can, like web application firewalls or web scrubbers, which scan for social security numbers and mask them. We need to go identify all the keys that are in a physical hard drive or a physical location. First step is to discover and get them into an inventory, right? Once we get them into an inventory, we need to manage those digital assets, enforce policies, and then implement those, right? So that is one of the key things. Now, let's look at how AppViewX can help you do that, right? AppViewX, it has a smart discovery, and when I say smart discovery, it has a way of defining, a discovery schedule, and there are different scanning methods. It can be AppViewX discovery, it can be third-party, Rapid7, Qualys, and whatnot, right? PMC, ADTM. There are different ways that you can discover a network. What AppViewX does is it consumes all the data. It basically it assimilates that data and then generates a central inventory of everything that is there. It is a pretty defined rules engine with which you can define, once we detect that there is a digital asset, what do you want to do with it. You can also define a self-service process based on the detection as to what it needs to take action on. Once that is all done, once it is all inventoried, you can then define a continuous validation, a continuous discovery, where it is intelligently scheduling, from where it stopped to make sure it goes around the world, periodically, to make sure everything is set up the right way, everything is working the right way, everything is valid and stays within the TTL, within the time limit and all that. And also it auto updates inventory whenever it finds some new assets. That way you have one place where you can go to, right? Where you can see all the pointers to where all the digital assets are there. And then you can also define exclusion and say, these things I'm not worried about, these things doesn't make sense to me, and you can exclude it. You can take an educated guess on, for example, dev systems and lab systems. You don't worry about it. You can do that as well. Let's quickly look at how it is done. I'll do a quick demo of AppViewX. All right. I hope you can see the screen. So I have. All right, so this is the discovery screen. So there are different types of discovery. So there is authenticated discovery and unauthenticated discovery. In an authenticated discovery, in an unauthenticated discovery, it's a plain vanilla network scan. So you can pass an IP range, a subnet, a URL, or you can upload a file where it will get that information, and then it will use that to scan, right? And there is also authenticated discovery where it would go look at the known devices. So you pretty much share the access to the device, and it basically goes and understands the APIs where the certificates are stored, where the keys are stored. Based on that, it will pull. So it could be a certificate authority where it's an authenticate discovery, where it knows how to get the certificates from certain authorities or firewalls and from those type of devices. Once that is discovered, you can then define the rules after discovery. What do you want to do with it? Do you want to manage, monitor it? Or if you want to define a logic, a workflow to that, you can define all that. So if you let me pull a discovery which is completed. I can pull up and show you. This is a discovery from the certificate authority. So if you look at this, there has been 4,634 certificates that has been discovered. Of those, majority of them, right, almost 4,628 of them are newly discovered, and there are a few which are already existing. So it will show you a breakdown of it. And when it discovers, it basically discovers all the information that you need from it, whether it is it's a SHA-1 certificate, or whether who's the issuer, what is the device, and the serial number, how long it is valid, all the details that you need. In fact, there are a whole bunch of additional details that you can add as well. So everything that you can get from the device, it basically pulls that and then gives that to you. It even tells you compliance data based on the policies that you have defined. It tells you the key algorithm and key usage, a whole bunch of stuff. So likewise, there are unauthenticated discovery. If it is an unauthenticated discovery, let me pull up one of these. So then it will tell you how many certificates it discovered, and then where it discovered from. So I'll pull another one. A result of a network scan, if it found any, and then it basically does an SSL handshake, and then it gets the data, right? And this is an authenticated discovery from an F5 device. It tells you how many are already there, and then how many have encrypted keys, how many are not encrypted keys, and then all those details you can look at. So once you have this data, with this, you can easily define compliance policies. Then you have a better control of what you need to do with that, right? So let me go to a couple of case studies. So for a federal customer, so they were using Excel spreadsheets, the price, right, to manage the certificates, and we see that being done pretty common across industry, and what we have done is we have taken those Excel sheets and we uploaded it, and based on that information, so we basically manage or we access those devices, and we pull those certificates and we manage those. So those IPs could be publicly deployed, where we have agents that we run on different network subnets or different network zones. So it could be different availability zones in the cloud, or it can be on-prem. So we are able to connect to those IPs just like a user would, and then validate if the certificates are set up correctly. Right? A similar approach is with an insurance company, where they were again managing it from a SharePoint. They had a SharePoint process where they had put up where all the users would go into a SharePoint and submit a request for approval, and based on that, the workflow, it went through the workflow. What we did is we took that, we did a bulk upload of certificates into AppViewX, and once it was there, we mapped their business process with AppViewX AppViewX workflow, so that the exact same process is there, but now it is secured and it goes to AppViewX, right? So we were able to automate the key deployment, the key generation process, deployment process, everything, and thereby securing end to end. And the customers didn't see a huge difference on how they request the certificate, but we were able to secure it. Another utilities company, they had a Rapid7 scan, which was scanning all of their network, which would identify the certificates and certificate vulnerabilities and all that. But they only had the data. They didn't know what to do with it, because they cannot go reach out to every customer and manually have them fix it and renew it and pull 9 yards. So what we did is we integrated with Rapid7. We pulled the data using the APIs. We consume that data, and then we give them a self-service capability with which they are able to secure the assets, and then they're able to renew and revoke unwanted certificates. All that is done self-service. And the team continues to use Rapid7 for the scans. They're able to see the report of those certificates and the vulnerable certificates reduce in the scans. So it was an interesting use case for us, which we recently deployed. Now, I guess we are close to the end of the time. So I will give some time for questions. Sorry, I rushed through a lot of content. So if you have any questions, please log your questions in the chat panel. I'll give you a few minutes. And then if you want to look at the live demo of AppViewX, you can sign up online. And there is a AppViewX/try AppViewX link that you can get to. And you can also do an enterprise trial where you can run our product in the cloud. So you can access it in AWS Azure and then play with it. Or you can deploy it in your environment as an OVA, and then you can play with that as well. With that, I'll wait for questions, and I guess that with that, I've pretty much covered all the topics that we have planned to cover in this series. So, Janesh, are there any questions from the audience?
Thank you, Murli. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the question box in your control panel.
Okay.
So we have one question.
I see a question.
Yeah.
It says, how do you manage or recycle keys? With what platform your integrations with? Okay, let me take it up one by one. With what platforms do you have integrations with? There's a whole bunch of platforms that we integrate. Pretty much all the well-known platforms that is deployed in a data center, we integrate with those. Pretty much all the web servers, all the app servers, and the majority of the database servers we integrate with. We constantly add additional integrations. So the architecture is built in such a way that we are able to add plugins, and it's more like a Linux server, right? You can just similarly, we can add plugins to support additional vendor integrations. So if we run into customers who have different vendors or different versions, we are able to add those. And how you manage recycle keys, it's a long discussion. So pretty much the thing is you can automate the key generation either on the device or on a HSM or on a AppViewX, and then it can be escrow. So there are different ways of deployment there. And then can you manage certificates on containers? Can you manage certificates on containers? Yes, we can. There are different ways to deploy, whether the host is synchronized with the containers or not, or if you want to directly push the certificates to containers. There are different ways to do it. And there is enrollment that you can do. There's a pull and push model available as well. For licensing and from the licensing end, do you have license cost for app or per managed certificate or key? I guess you can reach out to us for licensing. We're glad to help you with that. I guess it's a technical webinar, so I would like to keep it focused on the technical side. Management 1 to 10 to Department A and keys 30 to 40 to Department B. And Department B not able to see Department A's keys. Absolutely. So we have multi-tenancy as well. So if you want to completely isolate Department A and B, you can actually have them stored in separate databases. You can access control them if you don't want that level of segregation. You can access control them to say Department A has access to only 1 to 10 keys. So if they go into the inventory, they only see those 10 keys. They go to the report, they see report for those 10 keys alone. If they get alerts, they get alerted only on those keys. Pretty much like a complete isolated environment. And they wouldn't even know that Department B exists, right? So like that, you have an option to even use it as a tenant, where you create tenant A and tenant B. And when they log in as tenant A. So that is a complete isolation. There are different ways to do that as well. All right. There's one other question. Do you offer key management for SSL and SSH keys? Yes, we do. And we do support escrow capability as well. We do offer, for SSH keys, we do offer host certificate management, SSH cert management also. We support that.
Murli, we have one more question.
You're welcome, Valentin.
Does the discovery require agents installed on the network?
No, we don't. So the discovery, when I mentioned the agent, that is more a gateway. So there is an AppViewX gateway. So you can run the AppViewX gateway in the location within that secure zone or whatever zone that you want to run it on. Instead of punching codes like a Swiss cheese, you can run agents, and that can do all the discovery. We also have an agent-based approach. So for whether it's Windows, Linux, or the standard operating systems, if you want to run an agent, you have the option to run agent as well, but you don't have to. So you can just use our gateway, which can manage it in an agentless mode.
Hope that answers your question.
Right. Any other questions? All right, there is another question. It's in the chat window. Okay, that's the one that you just asked. Okay, it's going to require agent installed on the network. Yeah, it requires, it's not an agent, it's more of a gateway. So you can run agent also. There's another question. To access password protected key store, I assume password will be stored in AppViewX, correct? So there is a vault. So you can provide the passwords in a vault. So we would use that password to access protected key stores. Either you can, we also integrate with privileged access management tools like CyberArk, Beyond Trust, WormGuard, etc. So we can get the access from there, or we also support Software Vault. We also support HashiCorp Vault. So you can keep those in there, and then we to decrypt the secure or encrypted in key stores. All right. Can you offer management of code signing usage? Right now, we do offer code signing certificate and management using AppViewX CA. So we are expanding in the upcoming release to support further or enhance further. And so we can discuss further, Joe, about that. So we do have that capability. there is another. Right. So any other questions? Yes, pretty much all of them are answered.
We have one more
You
question.
can either type on the. Oh yes. Do you have integration with Entrust Private CA? Yes, yes, we do. That is. So there are there's hosted interest, and there is also the public CA. So we support that. For the private piece of it, we have a programmable connector. The native connector is being worked on right now. All right, I guess we are at the top of the hour. Thank you, everybody. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. And feel free to access our website where you can go download and play with it. You can sign up for that, and you can run it in AWS, in your own AWS, or we can help you just access time-shared AWS where you can play with our system. Thanks for your time, and look forward to talking to you in further, the future series. This is, I think, 3 webinar series. Thank you.